Coming up next on The Voice of Alabama Politics, Democrats to elect new chair. Also, survey says education and health care are top issues. And the Alabama Ethics Commission is going to the dogs.
Oh my God! He's gonna give that dog fleas.
Fleas? More like rabies. All this and much, much more coming up next on The V. Welcome to The Voice of Alabama Politics, where we tackle the tough issues so you have the hard facts. I'm your host, Bill Britt, and today I'm joined by Susan Britt, research guru extraordinaire, and Josh Moon, columnist and investigative reporter at APR. Welcome.
Hi, guys.
Hey, guys.
Josh from sunny Florida down there.
From Florida.
Nice.
Florida. That's good.
Doing well. We're doing well.
I tell you know what is not doing well? It's the state of Alabama.
Oh,
the state
Lordy,
of Alabama
Lordy.
is in trouble. We have so many scoundrels doing so many scoundrel things right now. It's just unbelievable. But let's just take one. This past July 13th, so 2 weeks ago, the Alabama Ethics Commission gave itself the right to violate criminal procedures, to ignore state law, and ignore the United States Constitution. They did that in an advisory opinion in which they said they had no obligation during an investigation to give the defendant or the defense attorney exculpatory evidence or Brady material, Josh. I mean, these are the basic building blocks of our entire system of justice when it comes to
Run with
it. You know.
Yeah. So just to lay this down so everybody kind of understands it here. Essentially, what this means is let's say you are unfortunate enough to be the subject of an ethics investigation. Somebody turns you in for for misusing campaign funds, for example, and they begin an investigation into you. And along the way, they find out that, hey, turns out that's not true. You had a perfectly reasonable explanation for why you spent campaign funds on X. Yet they never disclose that information to you, and they carry on with this investigation. And they have no reason now to disclose that, and they can continue investigating you. In the meantime, costing you your job, making people believe that you are somehow a criminal here, because this is what happens under ethics investigations, and they have actually ruined people's lives along the way doing this, and now they have no obligation, apparently, according to themselves, to disclose this information and can carry it on.
I mean, Susan's very basic. Supreme Court ruled 1963, Brady versus Maryland, that the prosecution had to turn over all evidence that would exonerate the client.
Right.
They're saying they don't have to do that.
We're talking about, a national opinion here, and we're talking, and the Ethics Commission of the state of Alabama thinks they are, totally under no law, under no precedent at all, that they are in their own self, their own little fiefdom of being able to pick out people in the state. I mean, I've seen them pick out people for getting a free sandwich from Chick-fil-A and try to bring ethics charges against them. And basically just try to ruin their lives. And this is all coming from...
This really started with Cynthia Ralston,
I
think.
Exactly.
I think it
That's
started
where I
with
was headed
Cynthia
with
Ralston, who used to be, the general counsel for the Ethics Commission. We'll get into a little bit more about it.
Yeah, really.
But this kind of thing, but the other thing that we really have to point out is they claim, erroneously, that they operate under the Grand Jury Secrecy Act. I talked to some of the people who wrote Alabama Grand Jury Secrecy Act, and they said they're misapplying it. I've talked to several lawyers who specialize in ethics and say they're misapplying it. That was never intended for them to operate in total secrecy and not turn over exculpatory evidence, which means stuff that might, exonerate somebody, Josh. I mean, this is madness, and we have at least 3 cases we have reported on, or 2 we reported on, 1 we're going to report on, where this has actually happened.
Yeah, there have been a number, and we know there are a number of other cases out there in which people have been essentially wrongly prosecuted for an extended period of time, in which information related to their case was disclosed to their employers, to people that might have contracts with them. In the meantime, they had evidence all along that some of these things were untrue. Some of the allegations were untrue, and they never disclosed that to anyone. I like Tom Albritton. I've spoken to him a number of times. I think that he's an okay guy. But I'm to the point with the Ethics Commission now, and I'm honestly I'm frustrated with Tom as well about some of the things that have taken place there. I think it's time to just do away with this, because it seems to me that it is turned into much more of an entity that allows people to get away with crimes and to carry out personal vendettas than it is anything related to upholding ethics in this state.
Right. And I've seen the situation where you're talking about contracts, where the Ethics Commission went and interviewed people that had contracts with the individual and threatened them with ethics complaints if they didn't comply with what they wanted. I mean, this is just this is just terrorism. They're terrorizing people.
Well, I mean, if you look at Montgomery Police Chief Finley, who was, they went after him with a vengeance. Yeah. And once it got to the point where Cynthia Ralston was pursuing him, Attorney General Steve Marshall had to step in and wrote a letter, said that the transcripts of the hearing before the commission indicate material misrepresentation of facts made by the commissioners, both to the commissioners by General Counsel Cynthia Ralston and the agent. I mean, it was so bad, Josh, that the Attorney General revoked her Assistant Attorney General's status. And you know what? She stayed on.
Oh, they gave her a raise.
She stayed on, even though she
they
can't
gave her a
represent
raise.
Yeah, it is. And listen, I don't agree with Steve Marshall on much, but when you're right about some things. And he is, when he has been dealing with the Ethics Commission of late, he has been 100% right in what he's doing, because, listen, we have these rights to protect people from wrongful persecution, wrongful prosecution here. This is the reason we do this. And you can't set up an entity like the Ethics Commission and claim it's just outside the bounds of the law, but then carry weight on all these legal matters as well, and do things that cost people their jobs and possibly impose sentences on people that cost them thousands and thousands of dollars, and they can be charged criminally. We can't do that. You can't have it both ways.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it right there, but we'll pick it up after the break. You're watching the voice of Alabama politics. We'll be right back.
So you got caught speeding. But this time you got more than a ticket.
What are you in for?
Vehicular homicide.
Stop speeding before speeding stops you. Drive safe, Alabama. A message from your Alabama Department of Transportation.
My dog Jupiter is frightened when I climb too high, the owl said.
Check for monsters, Daddy.
I did, honey. There are no monsters. You're perfectly safe.
Protect yourself and those you love. Vaccinate now.
Welcome back to the voice of Alabama politics. I want to stay on this for a minute. I mean, we've got other cases. Trey Glenn, who was Trump administration EPA guy down here, one of the EPA guys down here. They charged him and a guy that worked with him, Phillips, I can't remember, Scott Phillips, with a multitude of ethics violations. They had to drop them down to misdemeanors because Cynthia Ralston and Tom Britton and so bungled the case. They lied about how they got the grand jury because they said that the DA in Jefferson County invited them up to handle this case for him and put it before the grand jury. Well, I talked to the DA at the time and he said, no. They came to me and they said, we need to use your grand jury. But that's just one of the things. And you know,
and didn't they also, the original charge, wasn't it put in an envelope and left in front of somebody's door, which is illegal with the Ethics Commission? You can't anonymously do that.
Yeah.
But there was all kind of shenanigans that went on, and I think Cynthia Ralston's sister
unless you're trying to get rid of a
involved.
superintendent candidate, that sort of thing's illegal.
Yeah.
That's where that came
That's
from.
another one.
Yeah. But we don't have time to get into all the machinations of craziness. Look, I talked to some people over the weekend last weekend that knew a lot about this. And their problem is we know how to fix it. It's to correct the Ethics Act. But who are you going to trust to correct it, right, Josh?
No.
Yeah. I mean, to me, like I said, I'm almost to the point with this where I think I probably am to the point with this where let's just get rid of the Ethics Commission. We'll leave it up to the DAs and the AG's office or whoever. Maybe dump some more money into both of those camps and allow them to just handle things. Because I feel like why would you want to, if you're this entity of the Ethics Commission, why would you want to continue to pursue charges that you have evidence now that's exculpatory for the person who's the target of that investigation? You know what I mean? What's the point of holding on to that? Why is this even a thing?
Because it gets another notch in somebody's belt, another notch in somebody's gun.
That's what I'm saying. You got to stop that. We can't have that. That can't be our way.
Well, and here's a little tidbit on how well the Ethics Commission is run. Tom Albritton, who's the executive director of the Ethics Commission, on his statement of economic interest,
which is a form turned into the Ethics Commission, that is their creature.
And it is a sworn affidavit, in which he failed to disclose, Josh, that he was a member of a board. In the section where it says, "Are you a member of any board?"
Oops.
He didn't put anything down there, and so. But we know he's a member of the Mabel Amos charity.
Yeah. That's been well documented now in a lawsuit against Regions Bank that he's been accused of mishandling the funds coming out of that and using it to pay the tuition for a couple of his kids to go to college, along with another member of that board as well. And man, every day, it's like, when you're having to watch the watchers, it gets to be exhausting. We got enough other people to watch. We shouldn't have to worry about the people who are also supposed to be watching.
Well, it reminds me of the last line in Chinatown, the movie. It's Chinatown, Jake. I often say it's Alabama, Jake.
Yes.
Well, let's go on to another really pretty situation.
Yeah.
The Alabama Democratic Party had to disqualify Sebrina Martin.
Rightfully so.
She was, and we reported on this at APR. She won the primary to be a family court judge in Montgomery, one of three. And, once we started reporting on her, she had her children taken away from her back in 2004. 6 children for excessive corporal punishment.
5 of them were foster children.
Sure. I mean, they did the right thing. But
yes.
How did this happen, even?
Well, yeah. All right. So I will say, in a little bit of defense of the party, this took place in Indiana several years ago, and so it wasn't as though she had her children taken away in this state, and then she moved to Alabama prior to the children being taken away, and so that is that's how they missed it. Really, is because nobody checked in out of state court for this sort of a thing, and so and it just spiraled from there, and the children started doing interviews, and it was over. It was I'll say they made the right decision. I think you can't have this because she released a video response to this thing in which she talked about how children are so easily manipulated in these cases, and to me. It showed what I believe would have been a pretty clear bias on her part if she was in a family court situation and children were being used as witnesses, which they often are in those situations. And so I think it set up a terrible bias there, a potential bias on her part, and you just couldn't have that in the court system. And hopefully they'll get another good qualified candidate in there. I believe they're going to select the nominee at the August 13th meetings, and hopefully it'll be somebody that the community can trust.
Well, and let's not forget that she knows about children being witnesses in this because she was guardian ad litem for the sibling of the child she has adopted as well. So, she knows very well about children in the courtroom.
It gets very, very convoluted really fast. We've got about a minute and 15 seconds. But one of the things, a recent survey that came out of PARCA, which is the Public Research Council of Alabama, well-respected group, found that the top issues for people living in Alabama are education and healthcare. Shocking, right? They feel like we need to put more money into those two efforts. Anybody think that's a good idea?
If only there were a political party out there pushing those things that they could vote for.
That ain't gonna happen.
No. And if you put it in there, you have to manage it well. You can't just throw money at stuff. You've got to have a plan when you put money in to actually do something.
I think the voters have spoken. They really want education and they want health care expanded. They just don't know enough to vote for who might do that, I guess. But I don't know. Republicans can do it. They can do it. Yeah. They can do it. There's nothing stopping them. And it's like Susan said. You got to have the will to do it, and then you got to monitor it. But we're gonna have to leave it right there. You're watching the voice of Alabama politics. We'll be right back.
You'll never guess what 400,000 people in the U.S. were using when they crashed their cars last year. No, not this. This. Distracted driving will kill you. Drive safe, Alabama. A message from your Alabama Department of Transportation.
There was an old woman who lived in a shoe. She had so many children, she didn't know what to do. She gave them some broth without any bread and kissed them all soundly.
Lights out. Good night.
And put them to bed. Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org.
Welcome back to the voice of Alabama politics. I want to make something clear here. I think we have some good Republican lawmakers. I do. I think we have some good Democratic lawmakers. What I think we have is a party, and we can say both parties to some degree, but more so the Republican Party, that has so been nationalized that it's almost like they're afraid to do what's best for Alabama because people are going to go, oh, well, that's not very Republican. You know, I hate to say this, but I remember a time when education and health care were priorities for Republicans too. It was just how you funded them was the only difference.
People sat down bipartisanly and came up with plans. You know, they ran on a ticket of Democrat or Republican, but when it came to, you know, setting policy and plans, they sat down and talked together as individuals, not as party members. That doesn't exist anymore.
I think that you're right about the nationalization. That's certainly true. I'll tell you another big problem here is the gerrymandering that we've done. And it's on both sides to a certain degree. Although Republicans are drawing these maps, so you can hardly blame Democrats for that. But you know they've gerrymandered Democrats to the point where it's you're in districts where Democrats are going to win, and it's the same for the Republicans. The Republicans are going to win. It's just who can out Republican the other person. And so then you get super nationalized issues like this. Everybody in this state knows that we need to expand Medicaid. There's no argument about this. There's no legitimate argument on the other side of it. The only reason that we haven't done it is because we're super nationalized to the point where Obamacare was something that you could fight against from the far right fringe, and people back home would vote for this, even though it closed their hospitals and cost them, some of their family members, their lives. This is what we're dealing with.
Yeah, it's crazy. Well, and I want to, I want to. We'll get to some more of that in a minute, but I want to get back to the fact that the Democratic Party is going to select new officers in August. I think August 13th. I think is the day when they're hold their meeting. Chris England, who has been the chair of the Democratic Party for the past, it's not even been 2 years, has it, Josh?
No, right at about 2 years.
He's stepping down, and it looks like there'll be a contest to see who's going to run the party. Josh, I'm of the mind that we need a strong two-party system in this state, but that means that the Democrats are going to have to get organized and do a lot more work. I mean, I feel like that got good folks. It's just getting it organized and doing something.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it does. It needs to be run. You can't have these different factions fighting all the time. That's the reason why that I think that the person that they support in this should be somebody that can unite the party together. Somebody that the Joe Reed faction kind of supports, and some that the new faction kind of supports as well. Somebody that can unite those sides and then focus on the problems that are facing this party, which are substantial, not least of which is somebody that can go to the national party and say, hey, stop shortchanging us here in this state and give us the support that we need, as you did over in Georgia, and you saw the results that took place over there. Certainly, Stacey Abrams and those folks in Georgia had to prove their worth, as it were, to get that support from the national party. But that's what's going to have to happen here. There's going to have to be some grassroots things that are done, and to gin up support all around this state. And I think that we have a variety of issues now, particularly a pretty big one that's swinging a lot of people back towards the middle, which in the middle in this state is Democratic.
Well, I think, Susan, this is probably an accurate thought, is that I remember. And you were with me, I think, and we were talking to a group of Republicans when they found out that they actually had won more seats than they had anticipated in one election cycle. And the guy looked at us and said, we don't need any more dang Republicans. He said, we got too many now. We can't.
And he was a Republican.
He was a Republican. He said, we can't get anything done because we have to do all this nonsense, and there's not enough Democrats to blame when we do something like that.
Right.
It is. It's a legitimate problem. It really is a legitimate problem.
Yeah. But I know,
and you don't have to. A lot of time, people don't realize that so many better things get done when you have two parties that are viable. Even if the Republicans can stay in control, even if they just don't have a super majority and they have to listen to Democrats and court them on issues.
They have to talk to each other. With a super majority, they can just push the Democrats. Whether who's in charge, it doesn't matter. Democrats, Republicans. If you've got a super majority, you don't have to listen to the other voice, and that is bad for the state. I'm sorry.
It's bad for small d democracy. It's bad for policy. Because look, again, I think we go back to the fact that it's been so nationalized that, look, I mean, the Democrats were in control in Alabama until 2010, and it was still a conservative state.
Yeah.
There was nothing unconservative about it. And if you look at the Democrats in Alabama, they are what would be called conservative Democrats. They are,
very conservative.
You've got some that aren't, but by and large, the majority, are conservative Democrats. And I think one of the problems in this, as we were going to talk about, is why voter turnout is so low. And I think one of the reasons is because people don't have choices that they're crazy about.
No, they don't have choices. They have situations where they go, and we were talking about last week, where they're going to try to close the primaries, or even now, still, if you go into a primary, you have to announce to everybody in the room if you want a Republican or a Democrat. Ballot, I think people are estranged. I think they are confused, and it's just they just don't want to deal with it.
Josh, we had 23% turnout for the primary election, 13% participated in the runoff. That's these are the kind of numbers that you would you just would never expect in a country like ours. But the whole country's sort of going this way. But Alabama's really bad on this.
Yeah, and I think it's again, I think a lot of it has to do with the gerrymandering of this. And in many in many districts, you know who's going to win. I mean, what's the point of turning up in a lot of these Republican-held districts if you're a Democrat? I mean, you know that your guy's not going to win. And so then I think it just takes a lot of the mystery out, and also even in the primaries, I think you see people that are clearly going to win. The incumbent's usually going to take it, and so I think that it kills the kind of the spirit of competition. The way we've done this, and I think that we need to change a bunch of different things in this state, and we need to start with how we draw up these districts. I think it needs to go to a commission of people who aren't involved in the process.
Yep.
Well, unfortunately, that's going to have to be the last word, but I agree with you on that.
I do too.
You've been watching the voice of Alabama politics. You watch us because we watch them.